Hello. Hello, hello, hello. I don't know if that's the right way to start this, is it? Hi, all, and welcome to Crime with My Collie. Every week, I'm going to be sitting down with my fur bestie Pickle, and we're going to unravel some true crime stories. Before I jump into today's episode, I just want to add a little disclaimer. The following podcast may contain sensitive content, which some listeners may find distressing. Listener discretion is advised. Okay, so I have decided today that I'm going to be covering the Ed Gein case, I guess. He is, if you don't know or haven't heard of him, he inspired a few movies that you might have heard of, like Chainsaw Massacre. And yeah, he's that guy. If you're crime curious like me, then you may have heard some of it, but you know, maybe you want the download, the whole story, his background, things like that. That's what I'm going to cover today. Another reason why I'm covering it is because I heard that they have announced the next Monsters series on Netflix is going to be the Ed Gein case. And I thought, you know what? I need to refresh my head on that one before they put it on Netflix and then I'm straight away on the internet searching, wanting to know all the ins and outs of what went on. So, yes, I am bringing that for you today. So, a little backstory. Ed Gein, he was born in Wisconsin in August 27th, 1906. So, we're going a little bit back for this one. He was the second of two sons. He had a brother named Henry. Parents George Gein and his mother Augusta, I believe that's it. Augusta Gein. He had a normal, I guess, childhood, kind of normal. His um, mother was really into religion. She frequently preached to her sons. Yeah, so his mother, she believed that there was a world full of evil, the evil of drinking, her belief that women weren't natural, promiscuous, and instruments of the devil, and all that sort of stuff. So she really did kind of preach to them, and I believe she did this every afternoon to make sure that they were aware of the evil of the world. And if she found out what was going to become of her son, she probably is rolling in her grave, because honestly, to teach your sons about all the evil of the world and then your son becomes the evil of the world, and he fucking did. Like, seriously, yeah, he did some weird and horrific stuff. Anyway, getting ahead of myself. When they were younger, they decided to move from that city life to a farm. So, Augusta took great advantage of this, and she was like, well, farm, great place to isolate my children, make sure that they are away from all those horrible sins and influences of the world. It was said that Ed Gein, he only actually left the farm when he was attending school, and outside of school he was just working on the farm, spent most of his time doing chores. And he was pretty shy. His classmates and teachers remembered him as having strange mannerisms, such as randomly laughing, which, would be pretty scary or a bit weird if you're in class and suddenly one of the kids just started laughing out loud. But it was one of his own personal jokes, apparently. So, yeah, Augusta punished Gian whenever he tried to make friends, and according to his family acquaintances, despite his poor social development, Gian was did fairly well in school. He was into reading, and yeah, overall they thought he was an, you know, average kid doing well. I guess what you want to hear when you're trying to keep your kid away from the evil of the world. Now, as far as I'm aware, life seemed good on the farm, and they continued the way they were for years. The kids helped out. They worked hard. There was the neighbours and everyone, local community didn't see anything too weird or suspicious with the family. Unfortunately, in 1940, Edward Gein and Henry would lose their father to heart failure. He was 66 years old when he passed away, and this is when Ed and his brother Henry had to start doing other jobs as well around town. This is actually quite, I just have to say this. So, one of the jobs that Ed Gein did, and when you find out what he actually did, you're going to be like, no way would I have ever wanted him be that person. But he babysat for local kids, yes. So, yeah, wait until you hear, and I'm going to bring that back up because you're going to be like, no fucking way. But yeah, so that was one of them. Both of them obviously did other jobs as well. I believe they were handymen. They jobs, and yeah, they were just good people. Um, sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but I know what's coming. But yes. And then on May 16th, 1944, so 4 years after Ed Gein's father passed away, Ed actually lost his brother as well. Now, the backstory is that Edward was um, burning away some marsh on the property, and the fire got out of control. And during this fire, he noted that his brother Henry was missing. And when they managed to put out the fire, they obviously searched the area and they found Henry face down. Apparently, he had been dead for some time, and it appeared that his cause of death was heart failure, since he didn't have many burns or other injuries. But I call BS on that, to be fair, because, yeah. Anyway, it was later reported that Henry had bruises on his head, and police dismissed the possibility of foul play, but officially listed it as can never say this one, asphyxiation, as the cause of death. Now, no foul play. How did that happen? Well, I know how it could happen, I guess, but yeah. So, no official investigation was conducted, and there was no autopsy either. Ed and Augusta were now alone. Augusta had, unfortunately, had a paralyzing stroke shortly after Henry's death, and Ed devoted himself to taking care of her. She had a second stroke soon after, and her health just deteriorated rapidly. A year later, December 29th, 1945, at the age of 67. Ed was devastated by her death, and I mean, honestly, devastated. He, in his eyes, had lost his only friend, and he was obsessed with his mother. He idolized his mother, so this was a complete and utter blow to him. Edward did hold on to the farm, and he earned money from odd jobs. He was still a trusted babysitter during the late 40s and 50s, and he entertained children with magic tricks, which I always think, when we hear these stories of serial killers and murderers and stuff, and you think they were fucking clowns and had jobs like ice cream parlor. Who was it? That was, who am I thinking of? Help me, guys. Think. Brain fart. Brain fart. What is his name? Dharma. Yeah. He worked in an ice cream parlor. Anyway, so yeah, I always think it's crazy when they have these like mainstream kind of jobs. But anyway, so yes, he continued doing that, and he actually told these children that he looked after about stories of cannibals, and he would, just freak them out a little bit. I think I read somewhere that one of the kids that was at his property, he was babysitting, they saw some weird things, and they'd go home and they'd tell their parents, like, this guy has this in his house, and the parents would literally scold their children and be like, don't lie about him. He's a very nice person. And little did they know that was far, far, far from the truth. So after his mother died, Ed Gein actually boarded up the rooms that his mother used. And this included upstairs as well. Upstairs, downstairs, the living room, and other areas. He only gave himself, like, I believe, a small room next to the kitchen, and that was it. That was his area. Everything else he wanted to keep exactly how it was when his mother was last in the property. And yeah, everything seemed to be going well. You know, he was doing his work, he was keeping the farm, um, up until 1957. Now, this is when 58-year-old Plainford hardware store owner, Bernice Warden, would disappear. On the day of her disappearance, the hardware store's truck was seen driving out of the rear of the building at around 9:30 a.m. And they didn't have many customers in that day. Some residents say they believe it was because it was deer hunting season. But yeah, so when they did, Deputy Sheriff Frank Warden, he entered the store around 5 p.m. He found that the cash register was open and there was bloodstains on the floor. Frank Warden told investigators that on the evening before his mother's disappearance, Gein had actually been to the store and was expected to return the next morning for a gallon of antifreeze. The sales slip on the antifreeze was the last receipt written by Miss Warden on that morning that she had disappeared. So, of course, they were straight away like, okay, we have to investigate Ed Gein, really, because it appears that he was the last one to be there. So they did. They went there and, you know, they asked to search Gein's farm. And honestly, this is definitely not what the sheriff thought he was going to find when he went in there. But when he walked into Ed Gein's home, he found, Bernice Warden. She was hanging upside down by her legs. She had rope around her ankles and her wrists. And she was decapitated. And then her body, so it was cut from her chest all the way down, like, I guess like they do when they're cutting open. I think they said they compared it to when dressed out like a deer. That's what I read in one of the articles. So she had been shot as well with a .22 caliber rifle, and it appears that the decapitation and things like that was following her death. So it appears that Ed Gein, had shot her and then done these other things to her. But this was not I guess it was not the only thing that they were to discover when searching this house. And I will post some pictures of obviously not these, but, well, if you see his house, it is a fucking mess. So how they managed to find all this stuff is beyond me anyway. But yeah, there was some messed up stuff in this house. So I'm going to go through this as a list because it honestly is a list. They found, I feel like this is, I'm about to read out a shopping list. Honestly, when I told my sister about this, she laughed. Not because she's just evil. She laughed because she thought I was joking. She honestly was like, this is not a true story. This did not happen. You are lying to me. And I was like, no, I swear to God, this was true. This is exactly what they found. They discovered when they walked into the house. So they found a whole human bones and fragments, a waste basket made of human skin covering several chairs. So he like upholstered his furniture with human skin. They found skulls on his bedposts, There was female skulls, and some of them, the tops had been sawn off. He'd made bowls from human skulls. He'd also made a corset out of a female torso. He'd skinned it from the shoulders and the waist. They found some leggings that were made from human leg skin. There was a mask made from the skin of a female's head. There was also a face mask in a paper bag and a skull in a box. Bernice's obviously entire head that was found in a sack. Her heart was found in a plastic bag in the front of Gein's stove. There was a belt made from human nipples, 4 noses, a pair of lips on a window shade. Again, like he was using it as decoration. Gein admitted to stealing from 9 graves, so this is where they came from. He led investigators to locations, and they did tests on the graves to identify that these were the ones that Gein had obviously opened up and taken the bodies from. He would look at articles of people who had passed away recently, and he would, look at their pictures and things like this. And he was actually trying to find women who looked like his mother. It said that he wanted to get into his mother's skin. So that's why he was like creating this woman's suit. He wanted to literally become his mother. He denied having sex with any of the bodies that he exhumed and explaining that they smelt too bad, which, what the fuck? He did, unfortunately, also kill another woman. He admitted to shooting 51-year-old Mary Hogan. She was a tavern owner, and she'd been missing since December 8th, 1954. And she was from some of those pieces that they found discovered in his house, was identified to be Mary Hogan. A 16-year-old youth whose parents were friends of Gein and who attended baseball games and movies with him reported that Gein kept shrunken heads in his house, which he had described as relics sent by a cousin who had served in the Philippines during World War II. Upon investigations by the police, these were determined to be human facial skins carefully peeled from corpses and used by Gein as masks. So, yeah, these were all what he had dug up from burial sites. And he also added that he wanted to dig up his mother, but he couldn't. So how did they sentence Gein? Well, on November 21st, 1957, Gein was arraigned on 1 count of first-degree murder, while he pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia and found mentally incompetent, thus unfit for trial. He was sent to a Central State Hospital for the criminally insane. This is a maximum security facility, and later he transferred to another mental hospital for the criminally insane. Sorry, let's say it like that. In 1968, doctors determined that Gein was mentally able now to console and participate in his defense. A trial began in November 1968 and lasted 1 week. The psychiatrist testified that Gein had told him that he did not know whether the killing of Warden was intentional or accidental. Gein had told him that while he examined a gun in Warden's store, the weapon discharged and killed Warden. He said he had not aimed the rifle at Warden and did not remember anything else that had happened that morning. So, yeah, it's, no, it was an accident. Okay, then what the fuck did you do after that? Yeah, exactly. At the testimony by doctors for the prosecution and defence, they ruled Gein not guilty by reason of insanity and ordered him to be committed to a Central State Hospital for the criminally insane. Gein was tried for only one murder, that of Mrs. Warden. He also admitted to killing Mary Hogan. Gein's house, the outbuilding, and his 195 acres of property were appraised at $4,700. So this was would have been around $50,000 today. His possessions were secluded to be auctioned off in 1958, and I'm wondering what on earth they were auctioning off at that time. Maybe I should have had to look at it, but anyway, it was rumored that the house and the land it stood on could become a tourist attraction, and early morning on March 20th, the house was destroyed by a fire. A deputy fire marshal did feel that it may have been, arson, but there was nothing they could, it was suspected. But the cause of fire was never officially determined. So I think, to be fair, if I lived there, I don't think I want this house of horrors to be sold and become an amusement or tourist attraction in where I lived either. And especially given that he looked after a lot of the kids and things like that as well. So yeah, it probably was for the best that it burnt down. Another thing that actually did go to auction was his Ford sedan, which apparently was what he would put the bodies in and, get the bodies back to his home. And that was paid for. And I believe it was used at a carnival side show. People could pay a certain amount of money to look at this car owned by Ed Gein. I don't know why you'd want to, but that's not only the other weird thing that happened with after he died. His headstone, people would go and take bits of his headstone, and then later on, someone actually took the whole headstone. Why you'd want to keep that, I don't know. But when that happened, they decided, you know what, we're not going to give him another headstone because obviously people just want to steal it, which is really freaking weird. Gein's crimes helped inspire lots of fictional movies following his death, such as Psycho, The Silence of the Lambs, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So all of these kind of movies that we have were inspired by what he'd done. It's quite chilling, really. But part of me was like, because we watch those films and we think, oh my God, they're so, how fucking lucky do we not have psychos that? But we do. They're out there. Am I making sense? I don't think I'm making any sense here. But it's like, but then part of me was like, well, if there was a director out there who was writing these movies and wasn't inspired by anything, then that could be pretty freaking terrifying too. So yes, I guess this psycho helped us create good movies. Trying to see a silver lining here, not really, because he's just fucking weird. But yeah, so in September 2024, they announced that Gein was going to be the third season of Monsters, and this is what I saw, and I was like, okay, I need to just refresh my mind of everything, the Gein story, before I watch that. It is coming out. It's going to be on Netflix this year, apparently. So I am definitely going to be watching that. pretty sure any of you other crime curious junkies out there, my crime curious family, I'm sure that you're all going to be watching that too. And I'm curious to see how much of the actual story, the real true story that they're going to put in there and how they're going to show that, because this is quite a horrific story, right? As always, I do try my best to include factual information from the sources I researched. Let me know your thoughts on this story. Did you hear about it? Have you heard about it before? What do you think? He was a bit weird. He definitely had a bit of a weird obsession with his mother. Um, if you would like to recognize? God, I think it's time for me to finish this episode. If you would like to recommend a story for me and Pickle, please add it in the comments, or you can message us on Instagram at Crime with My Collie, where you can also find episode notes, resources, photos from the cases. You know, me and Pickle will pop up every now and again and say hi. Until next time, thank you so much for listening. Please keep yourself safe, trust your gut feelings, take care, guys, and goodbye from us.